if Caitlin Clark somehow wins the WNBA championship this year, she will have put together the greatest rookie season in the history of professional sport.
I really do. And I think moving forward, I think that number is going to, as the playoffs continue on, I think that number is going to continue to come down.
Have you ever been so good at something that people start to dislike you for it? That's kind of what's happening with Aja Wilson. She's a beast on the court, but some fans are calling her unlikable. Why? It's not about her game, it's about everything else. Let's talk about the Aja Wilson problem that nobody wants to address. Then why is there so much fuss? Think about this, a top-tier athlete who isn't getting any love but is being referred to as the queen bee of the Mean Girls Club. From WNBA champion to villain, how did Aja Wilson get there? It's as surprising as a turn of events in a sports film. Wilson has the talent to make a living, but when she's not playing basketball, she's causing more trouble than a reality show. Her jump shots and crossovers aren't the only things people are raving about anymore. Their conversation revolves around her behavior and attitude toward others. Remember how every high school had that one popular kid that everyone is little intimidated by? That's the impression Wilson is making in the WNBA. She is the head of what some have called the Mean Girls Club, and when you're aiming to represent your league, that's not the kind of title you want. The truth is, though, Wilson isn't only causing a stir among her teammates. It would appear that she is more concerned with herself than the game. She's not playing for the Las Vegas Aces, but rather Team Aja. Oh, and you know what? Many are taking note. The media is focusing on the drama she has off the court rather than the spectacular plays she has performed. Wilson is removing herself from the spotlight as an example for others to follow, much like a top athlete getting benched. In a league that is striving to attract new fans and motivate young players, it is a major concern. So what? You may be asking, who gives a hoot if she keeps winning games?
I really do. And I think moving forward, I think that number is going to, as the playoffs continue on, I think that number is going to continue to come down.
Charles Barkley talking about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon and the people he blames for blowing this whole Caitlin Clark deal.
I wonder, this actually needs to be studied. What other sports league has diminishing ratings as you get closer to the championship?
Now we reach the hard part. It has been said that Wilson's demeanor is having the opposite effect of what the Aces need. It would be the equivalent of having a quarterback who is great at passing the ball, but is unable to collaborate with his teammates. They could get some individual statistics perhaps, but at what expense? You can't deny the Aces' status as a dominant squad. Think of how much better they could do if their standout player focused on the team rather than on his own problems. Wilson seems to be juggling two worlds, one on the court and one in a reality show, which is disrupting the team's equilibrium. And the worst part is that all this controversy is making Wilson's amazing skill seem insignificant. It's causing a strange schism since people aren't sure whether they should admire her for her abilities or despise her demeanor. Like in a superhero flick, you can't tell if the protagonist is on the side of good or evil. The WNBA is having a really hard time promoting Wilson as the league's ambassador because of this entire thing. Have you ever considered the possibility of having a player whose reputation is based more on his antics than his performance represent your company? It would be like attempting to market a high-performance vehicle with a history of mechanical issues despite its stunning appearance.
She's the Tim Duncan of the WNBA. Hey, that's great. I love Tim Duncan, great player. Doesn't sell shoes, doesn't drive TV ratings. That's not what he does. That's who Aja Wilson is.
If Caitlin Clark somehow wins the WNBA championship this year, she will have put together the greatest rookie season in the history of professional sport.
In the realm of blown chances, Wilson was on the verge of committing the gravest blunder to date. Think about it. A famous athlete insulting their own supporters. Seems absurd, doesn't it? Yes, that is precisely what transpired when Aja spoke up about performing in Indiana. What Wilson said will shock you. She took it personally, saying, "I dreaded being in Indiana. Not because of the city, I just don't want nothing to pop off." Wow, this is really disappointing for Fiverr fans. It's as if she is expressing her disinterest in being there to the fans who purchase tickets and wear her jersey. Take a moment to consider this. Other WNBA players are busy signing autographs, hyping up their young fans, and creating an unforgettable experience for kids. However, Wilson, it's as if playing in Indiana is a punishment, according to her. That's crazy. An intense and rapid backlash ensued. Both the fans and the other players were really angry. There would be no WNBA if Wilson disregarded the importance of fans. Many people were critiquing her, accusing her of being rude and ungrateful. When word got out, she was even called the most unlikable player in the WNBA. It's not easy to shed that title. What could be even more bizarre? Currently, the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth. There has been a marked increase in spectatorship, and women's basketball is at last receiving the recognition it merits. Wilson, however, is over here griping about performing in particular cities rather than riding that wave and engaging with new fans. She seems oblivious to the influence her remarks have on the league, as if she lives in a small bubble all by herself. Star players who are fully committed are essential if the WNBA is to achieve its ambitious goals. However, Wilson, she seems to care more about her own problems than about solving them collectively. This occurrence in Indiana wasn't merely an unfortunate day or an accidental utterance. This marked a watershed moment. Those who have reservations about Wilson in the past, they now had an excuse to leave the bandwagon. Those who weren't previously enthusiastic about it, everything they had previously suspected about her was validated by this. Reflect about it. It seems to reason that the league's public face should be a unifier, someone who can make every fan, regardless of their background, feel valued. However, Wilson's remarks had the reverse effect. She alienated herself from her audience and drove a wedge between her and her admirers. Seeing a superstar score for their own team is the closest thing to it. Wilson may be incredibly talented, but she is doing more harm than good for herself and the league she is supposed to represent with remarks like this. You know how a rookie can sometimes alter the course of a game? That indeed is the current state of affairs in the WNBA. The whole while Aja Wilson has been dealing with this controversy, a new player has been stealing the show and winning over fans. Caitlin Clark is her name. Clark isn't merely talented, she is changing the face of WNBA stardom, as if you were reliving the glory days of Steph Curry or LeBron James in their youth. She's talented, that much is true, but what's making her stand out is her demeanor. Think about this. Clark doesn't waste time griping about not getting to play in some cities. He goes out and hips up every game. She's representing more than just herself on the field. She's representing her team, the fans, and the entire league. It's very different from Wilson's method. Would you like to know what's truly outrageous? Women's basketball hasn't experienced such widespread enthusiasm in recent years, but Clark is changing that. A lot of people are rooting for her, so it's not just points. More and more people are tuning in, purchasing tickets, and becoming hooked on the WNBA with each game she plays. However, things start to get intriguing at this point. Basketball isn't the only reason Clark has a large fan base. Everyone loves her because she's perfect in every way. On the court, she's got game, but when it comes to off court, despite her extraordinary athleticism, she resembles your average girl next door. Reflect about it. Clark, in contrast to Wilson, has been actively involved in encouraging fellow players and building relationships with fans, while Wilson has been mired in scandal. Her goal is not to become queen, but rather to strengthen the hive as a whole. Moreover, did you hear? Its admirers are raving. Not only are they rooting for Clark, but also for all that she stands for. When she entered the league, it was like a new breeze. Everything was suddenly exciting again. However, the most important point is whether or not Clark's success is directly attributable to Wilson's mistakes. It's difficult to determine with certainty, but the timing is crucial. At a time when spectators were beginning to grow weary of the turmoil, this inexperienced player whose focus is on cooperation and positivity arrives. It's as if Clark took stock of Wilson's flaws and chose to do the complete reverse.
It's all just it's endless reparations. Give me things I don't deserve, and white girl, you take a backseat to me.
These ladies, and I'm a WNBA fan, they cannot have this Caitlin Clark thing up any worse if they try.
I think exactly is one of the reasons why for the past 20 some odd years, nobody has cared about this league, why there is certainly an antipathy towards it.
Oh, and you know what? So far, so good. She's doing more than winning games. She's winning people over. Let me clarify something. Wilson is still a fantastic athlete. There is no denying her court skills. Being a sports star nowadays, meanwhile, is about more than just playing your sport at a high level. Everything from your demeanor to your treatment of other people to the way you portray your sport matters. Clark truly shines in that regard. She's a wonderful representative of the WNBA. In addition to being a fantastic athlete, she inspires young girls to take up basketball and start practicing because she is an incredible player. Do you want to know the most insane thing? Wilson and Clark's contrasting styles are changing the way WNBA fans view their favorite players. Being a good basketball player is no longer sufficient.